We've just realized that we both support the number one soccer team in the world, Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah, see, there's Spurs fans everywhere. Just really, I'm going to underline, if not undermine, some of the things that have been said by my colleagues on the stage. And I want to sort of start with the bad news and then the good news. And I think the first thing we need to clarify is that actually climate change is not a problem. It's a symptom of a problem. And that's even more profound. We are using almost 1.5 times the Earth's regenerative capacity. We're liquidating the asset and calling it income, essentially. And so we have an accounting problem. So we're seeing it inappropriately. But I also think sitting here, all of us, we don't really know where we're at. We don't know what we don't know. And it'll be 100 years from now that people will either decide this was the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning. And we're maybe on the beginning of some kind of renaissance transformation that is actually quite deep and spiritually powerful, and that the internet was the thing that finally got us there, or something like that. And this failure to imagine the future possible really is what it's all about. And I think this is what my colleagues are getting at here. And even Bill Gates, for example, didn't believe or imagine that the PC would be used by all of us in our homes and offices. Even Bill Gates. And yet now Bill Gates, a month ago, has gotten up and said climate change is the number one issue that he wants to address between now and the end of his life. So I think that we become afraid. I'm old enough to remember the auto industry telling us that mandatory car seats would drive us to massive unemployment. Seen this movie before, and the fearmongers are in sway, ClimateGate, etc. So where, Chris, if we can't imagine the future possible, where are we at? And when we launched the term clean tech 8 years ago, I remember going down Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley and knocking on the doors of various venture capitalists, trying to get them excited. And I remember one day knocking on the door and saying, who can we talk to about clean tech? And literally, quite literally, we were told the janitor would be back after lunch. So, here we are now, 8 years later, and clean tech is the largest venture capital category. It dominates Silicon Valley. We've got over 2,000 companies that have been funded in the last 7 or 8 years, bringing disruptive innovation. And I think that's really profoundly important, because I think we're going to look back 30, 40 years from now and actually realize it was a lot easier to solve this than we thought. And in fact, in looking back, the only way we're going to solve it is by building an economy based on abundance, right? Moving from a paradigm of scarcity to abundance, so from fossil fuels to solar energy, and from one that's inclusive. There's no sense, we have grid competitive solar energy, but it's built in sweatshops. Solar energy is built in sweatshops, and it's still toxic. That's not good enough. So it's got to be an inclusive, it's got to be abundant, and I think we're going to get there. I think we're much closer to grid parity energy than we realize in the next 5, 10 years, but I don't think we're ready as a society to accommodate that. And it's not about green jobs, building a bunch of windmills up in Sault Ste. Marie. It's about all jobs being green. So the Bell technician comes to you in a hybrid or plug-in car, takes away your old phone, which is designed for disassembly, et cetera, et cetera. Every job is green. And so I think those are very powerful. A couple more things. Since we're on a hockey team, we got to quote Wayne Gretzky. And of course, Wayne Gretzky was asked, what's the secret to his success as a hockey player? And he said, well, I didn't go where the puck is. I go where the puck was going to be. So where the puck are we going? And you got to be really careful with your P's and F's up here, Chris. I don't think we know where we're going. And as Elise Boulding once said, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? And so I think the vision of a powerful, inclusive, abundant economy where we don't have to spend $1.5 trillion as we have over the past decade, sending young men and women to Afghanistan and Iraq, right, which gets us where we need to go, that's built on entrepreneurship and innovation, where we're not running to mummy, as it were, for government to intervene and artificially stimulate an economy and then put our grandchildren and children into massive debt is what it's got to be about. And I think that's related to full cost pricing. And whether government acts or not, that's coming. Sheer supply and demand is going to drive that. The difference between government involvement and smart government involvement or not is it'll be a lot less painful, and those jurisdictions that get ahead of the curve will create the jobs and the wealth that come with being part of the solution. And that's the game we're in. We're in a space race here almost for creating the jobs. And what I don't like amongst my friends in the United States, like Tom Friedman, is they see this as a win-lose game. The Chinese are coming, oh my gosh, and they are coming. I'm there in China every 2 months, and I see the innovation. I embrace that. We want a China that's engaged in this. So we have to think of this as win-win, and anything that's not win-win is not going to get us where we need to go.